All right then, continuing here, we're talking about the Spanish director Alex de la Iglesia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Can you see this name? This is his name, remember his name. In a different video, I reviewed his new film, his 2017 film, The Bar, which I'm giving a big 4-star rave review to. It's an excellent horror thriller with a sense of humor and very unpredictable and mysterious throughout the whole thing. But I'm not going to talk about The Bar. This is my other complimentary additional video about Alex de la Iglesia. I've seen 8 out of his 15 films, and I have a list of them in order here in my hand, and I am going to just run through some of these other films first, and if you've seen any 1 or 2 of his films, you might be interested in knowing some more about him. So I'm going to give you a little mini reviews of the other 7 films that I've seen here quickly, and just start out with the first one. He made a short film, and I'm not going to talk about that here. I didn't write that down the list. But the first feature-length film is Acción Mutante, which means, and I'm going to butcher the Spanish, just accept it. Accept it. If you're a Spanish-speaking person and you hear me butchering Spanish, I apologize, but just have to accept it. So Acción Mutante which means mutant action. And Alex de la Iglesia, by the way, was a comic book artist before he was a film director. So that's absolutely influenced his film sensibilities, and he has a brilliant visual style, and his visual style is very unique. So I'm not surprised that someone that comes from a background in comics, their first film was called Mutant Action. Does that surprise you? No, it doesn't. But Mutant Action is actually not a cliched superhero movie like it sounds. Mutant Action is a fairly awesome, low-budget, grade B science fiction potboiler about a future world in which it's told from the point of view of a terrorist group, and the terrorists are supposed to be sympathetic. This is black comedy material here, and the terrorists are a bunch of handicapped people who target and murder things that celebrate beauty and normalcy. Anything that celebrates beauty or normalcy, they're against. And the terrorists are all both handicapped and ugly. They're not just handicapped, they're handicapped and ugly. So they're totally against anything that is attractive. And I believe they attack, it's either a beauty pageant or a bodybuilding competition or something like that. I can't quite remember. But in the beginning anyways, it's about this terrorist group, and then the movie takes several hard twists and unexpected turns, and turns into sort of a one-on-one battle of wits between like the leader of the terrorist group, who's like on the run, and his hostage slash antagonist person. And it's I have to say, it's not one of my favorite Alex de la Iglesia movies, but it is enjoyable. It is worth seeing. If you like, let me give you a litmus test here. If you like old 70s science fiction films and grade B films, like Roger Corman, American International Science Fiction. If you liked, what would be a good one? If you liked Death Race 2000 by Roger Corman, the original American International version, or if you liked Soylent Green, or The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, or if you liked any of those movies, I would say you're probably going to like Acción Mutante, Mutant Action, because it's a grade B movie. Yes, it's a low budget movie. The budget kind of is straining at times. It's kind of amateurish in some of the shots. The director here is still learning his craft. Some of the shots are a little on the dark side and maybe not the best lit or composed, but so it looks a little bit amateurish in spots. It's still an enjoyable movie, and if you like B movies, let's make that the litmus test. If you like B movies, then you'll like Mutant Action. Now the next movie after that is a straight up horror movie, I understand, called The Day of the Beast. I haven't seen that one. The next one after that, the third one, is Perdita Durango. I also haven't seen that one, but I understand that that's based on the same book as the David Lynch movie, Wild at Heart. Or no, not the David Lynch movie, the Jonathan Demme movie, Something Wild. one of those two. It's based on the same book as, I think it's Something Wild, as that. So Perdita Durango, haven't seen that one. Now his fourth movie, Dying of Laughter, I have a copy of that. And that's, I criticized his first movie for being a little amateurish in spots. None of the rest of these movies that I've seen are anything but absolutely slick and professional and smooth and looking, although extremely odd and unique in his professional perspective, but they're very slickly done and well shot. Dying of Laughter is a great movie about a comedy team that's like an Abbott and Costello or a Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis sort of comedy team, and that forms by accident and becomes a big hit. And the joke is that there's a straight man and a funny man, and the joke is that the funny man isn't at all funny. He's not at all funny. He doesn't have any funny lines or any wit about him. He's actually a very dim-witted, very tongue-tied person who gets on stage and freezes and won't talk because he has stage fright. And so the straight man, because he's up there dying, will in desperation slap him to get him to respond. And the guy responds in monosyllables, and to the audience it seems like a routine, but it's for real. So that's the premise of this movie, is that the funny man isn't funny, and the straight man has to keep slapping him to get a response out of him, or else he's going to die on stage. And because the straight man is always slapping the funny man hates the straight man. In fact, they hate each other. They have complete contempt for each other. So this comedy team is composed of two people who really don't understand comedy and absolutely hate each other. And their hatred develops into this weird, surreal blood rivalry that carries across the decades and has just a spectacular ending. And I can't tell you anything more without spoiling it, but it's a very unusual, very unique, it's one of those films that's uncategorizable. Dying of Laughter is a film, I would say, like The Big Lebowski, where it's like, what genre is The Big Lebowski? Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? What is it? Whatever it is, Dying of Laughter is the same genre. Okay, it's funny, it's dramatic, it's weird, it's almost surreal in parts. It's almost like an over-the-top fable or parable in parts, and it's very worth seeing. Now, the next film after Dying of Laughter is La Comunidad, which means Commonwealth. I am going to see this film. I've been told by the movie dealer I've been getting these films from and trading him things for films and been dealing with for years, that he tells me that of the ones I haven't seen, that the Commonwealth and the Oxford Murders are the two must-see ones that he strongly recommends. But I haven't seen Commonwealth yet, so looking forward to seeing that. The next one after Commonwealth is 800 Bullets. Now, Alex de la Iglesia does have some violent stuff in his films. So you might think that a film called 800 Bullets would be like his most violent film. And if you thought that, you'd be completely wrong, because the title is a complete head fake in the wrong direction. This is probably one of his least violent films. It's a sort of slice of life sort of drama comedy about a film crew in a rural village out in rural Spain who are trying to film a spaghetti western. So it's a movie about movie making, and it's a sort of slice of life drama comedy. And it's, of all of the films I've seen, this is the one that plays the most like a very typical indie art house sort of drama slash comedy. And that's basically what it is, but it's a very worthwhile film. I do recommend it. It's not my favorite of the ones I've seen, but I do strongly recommend it. 800 Bullets is worth seeing. It's an interesting film. The next one after 800 Bullets is called Furpecked Crime, not Perfect Crime. Furpecked Crime, which is just a typo way of saying perfect. Furpecked Crime is an awesome, amazing, wonderful, hilarious, dark comedy about a gigolo salesman at a ladies' department of this ultra fashionable department store in Spain or France or someplace, and who sleeps with all of the pretty sales girls that he works with and romances all the customers and gets paid a huge amount on commissions. This fellow accidentally kills someone in the department store, and it's one of those movies where you're trying to dispose of a body and cover up a murder, which is why it's called Perfect Crime. And there's a huge swerve that I can't tell you anything about. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but let's just say that it's only one person involved in the cover-up, that's bad enough. But when you are inadvertently involved with the last person that you'd want to be involved with in a conspiracy, and you have to depend on the other person to help you cover it up, that's when it truly becomes a nightmare. And Perfect Crime is a dark comedy. It's very edgy. It's very similar to a Coen Brothers film, if you picture one of their darker films. It does involve murder and violence and disposing of a corpse, so there's a lot of dark stuff in there, but it's a very dark comedy, but totally worthwhile. I absolutely love that film. It's a great film, and I just love that film. The next one after that is The Baby's Room. I haven't seen it. I've seen the trailer. It looks like a horror movie. It looks good. Looking forward to seeing that. The next one after that is The Oxford Murders. I haven't seen it. Like I said, I'm supposed to be getting a copy of that soon, and it's highly recommended to me as being one of the really good ones, but I haven't seen it. I've seen the next three. The next one after The Oxford Murders is The Last Circus. The Last Circus was the first one I ever saw. I watched this movie and I said, I have to own all the movies by this director. Now that just doesn't happen. I mean, I'm a crazy film collector and I've got a ridiculously huge collection, but that just doesn't happen generally. And I don't generally collect modern directors. But The Last Circus is just that wild. And The Last Circus, kind of similar to Dying of Laughter, is about a big feud between two guys, but goes way beyond anything in Dying of Laughter. The Last Circus is a dark, film noir thriller about a sad clown who has a blood rivalry with the evil happy clown at the circus. And it's every bit as strange and every bit as great as that sounds. And it goes beyond that. It also deals with a period in Spanish history when Spain was a fascist dictatorship. And it deals with the issues of fascism. And it deals with all sorts of deep, dark, turbulent psychological stuff. And it's indescribable. It's just a great film. The Last Circus, dark crime noir thriller with a weird sense of humor too that pops up when you least expect it. There's a sense of humor in almost every Alex de la, I shouldn't even say almost, every Alex de la Iglesia film has a sense of humor, whether there's very much of it that surfaces in that particular film or not. And his sense of humor is unique and surfaces at the most unusual times sometimes, which is one of the things I love about his films. The next film after The Last Circus, but Last Circus, my highest possible recommendation. If you asked me what is my favorite film on this list, I think I would have to say The Last Circus. I might go with Perfect Crime. I don't know, I love that film so much. But yeah, one of those films would be my favorite on the entire list. But Last Circus, highest possible recommendation. The next film after Last Circus is a film called As Luck Would Have It, which I just watched for the second time last night so that I could watch it with my wife. As Luck Would Have It, I can't tell you hardly anything about this without spoiling it, is a complete departure from The Last Circus and virtually every other film, well, that I've ever seen, not just the films on this list. But As Luck Would Have It is about the media circus that surrounds a tragedy. Like, for example, if you have a bunch of miners trapped in the bottom of a mine, that becomes like a 24-hour media circus where, everyone's watching it on TV live, everyone's sort of keeping up with all the latest developments, and those people become like instant celebrities, when those things happen. Well, that's basically about what this movie is about. And it's not about minors, but it's about this advertising executive who's looking for work, and he's having a rough time, and he's having a very bad day out there, and he thought he might get a job, and he didn't, and he's disappointed, and things keep happening to him. He's just having a bad day, and then his bad day gets 1,000% worse, and he finds himself at the center of this tragic accident that turns into a media circus, ironically in an ancient Roman Colosseum. Very heavy-handed symbolism there, but all the media and all the onlookers wind up in the bleachers of the Colosseum while this tragedy plays out down in the middle of the Colosseum. That sounds corny, but this movie is awesome. It's amazing. I can't even hint at what the tragic circumstances are that trap him in this particular unbelievable situation. And it's not just like a mind cave-in or something. It's not anything trite or corny like that. It is an unbelievable situation, and he is conscious, and he is able to function, but he's not able to get out of the situation he's in. So he's on the phone as an advertising executive trying to exploit this media attention for his family. So he's not only at the center of the attention, but he's got an agent. He hires an agent while he's there, and he's got an agent out there trying to make deals for him. And it deals with not only him being the center of attention, but it deals with his wife, it deals with the mayor who is going to open this new historical artifact, this Colosseum that they've been renovating. It deals with the archaeological people, it deals with the doctor, the ambulance people, all the people that come, all the onlookers, the security guard who finds him first. It deals with all these people. And it's this amazing slice of life movie about how run-of-the-mill ordinary life can suddenly turn into this crazy, surreal, circus-like environment where everybody's life is changed forever. And it's sort of about what it's like to be at the center of like a natural disaster or a terrorist event or something that is, worldwide news. It's like what it's like to be the center of that for one moment, just by happenstance. And it's an awesome movie, and everybody should see it. It's very moving, but it's not a tearjerker. And it's got a very droll and dark and dry sense of humor to it that keeps it chugging along. But it definitely keeps your attention riveted to the screen to see what will happen next. And that movie's called As Luck Would Have It. Now the next movie, the last movie on this list, I've already reviewed The Bar, which is this new movie. And there's a few others that I haven't seen. But the last movie on this list that I haven't talked about is the one after As Luck Would Have It. And that's called La Brujas de Zuga. I'm going to spell this just so you know how hard this is to pronounce, okay? The name of this village is Z-U-G-A. Are you with me so far? Zuga. R-R-A-M. Are you with me? U-R-D-I. Now pronounce it. Okay, so I'm going to take a stab at it, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's not easy, okay? So the name of this film is La Brujas de Zugarramurdi. Zugarramurdi. That's hard. I'm sure I'm wrong. And I have no idea why they chose such a strange name for this village. And I think that it's possible that this is an actual village or an actual tale of Spanish folklore, that there was such a mythical place. And so it's possible that they didn't invent the name of the village. Because if you invented the name of the village, I think you'd go a little bit easier. Okay? So anyways, La Brujas, I mean, anyone with rudimentary Spanish would know that La Brujas means the witches. So this is the witches of this particular village, the village called Zugarramurdi. Okay? Now, having said that, is it good? It's awesome. It's a horror movie. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful horror movie. It starts out with a bunch of armed robbers who have a very unique gang blasting their way into a pawn shop. Or I shouldn't say they're not blasting their way in, but they rob a pawn shop. this very rich pawn shop in a tourist area that has lots of gold, and they steal this huge bin of like gold wedding bands and engagement rings that have been pawned, and they just steal a bunch of gold chains and jewelry and stuff, and they rob this pawn shop, and they're getting away. They're getting away in their getaway car, and the beginning of the movie is just like a crime thriller. It's a crime thriller opening with a very exciting robbery scene and some shooting and a very exciting shootout and getaway scene and a chase scene, and they're getting away. And it turns into a horror movie though, because they wind up not getting as far away as they want to get away, and they wind up in this remote rural area at this village, which is the village where witchcraft started. Witchcraft reportedly, according to this movie, started in a cave outside this village and spread to the village, and it was the original village of the witches. And when they get there, they find that this is indeed true, and find themselves at the mercy of a coven of witches who are looking for someone, coincidentally, to sacrifice so that they can bring the big mama thing, witch thing, over from the other side into our universe, and bring about the typical witchy type apocalypse or whatever. It's a horror movie. It's a fairly standard setup for a horror movie. It's a lot of fun to see witches, just traditional witches used as a villain. And the witches are varied. They're not all the same. In fact, there's a young, rather attractive punk rock witch, and there's some old hag-like witches, and there's some witches with iron teeth, little pointy iron teeth, and just crazy stuff in here. But yeah, they wind up in the village of the witches, and you won't believe the thing they're trying to summon when you see it. It does get shown, and it's awesome. And I can't tell you about it. And what else I was going to say about this movie is that there's this great subtext to it. That there's this very clever script that's all about the war between the sexes. It's all about men versus women and women versus men. And these robbers, one of them is like recently divorced and has custody issues with his young son, severe custody issues, and they go into that in the movie. And as they're getting away, he's actually bitching to the other robbers, who are sick of hearing about it, but he's bitching to the other robbers about his ex-wife. Instead of focusing on the getaway, he's like bitching about his ex-wife. And his bitching turns into this whole subtext of like, he's like pontificating his views on women as if he knows anything, to his fellow robbers. And then when they are dealing with these witches, his views are sort of put to the test, because he's trying to like talk his way out of this horror movie situation. And who does he have to talk to? They're all women. And there's an awesome scene in this movie where he's has been sort of semi-sweet talking the young, attractive punk rock witch, and she's sort of been buying into it. But then she sort of starts to see through him, and it's just like every person that's ever had a girlfriend or is married, or you all know that feeling where you don't want to get into an argument, but that other person is starting to want to get into an argument, and the other person is now like eyeing you like a hawk, ready to pounce on every little thing that you say and turn it against you in some way. And there reaches this point when he's sweet talking the pretty witch, where the pretty witch starts to see through him and starts to like pounce on everything he says, and he's backpedaling, and it's like he's trying to smooth things over and keep things on the lovey-dovey, and he's trying not to argue with her about anything, but he can't help it. He's drawn into the fight. He's drawn into defending himself. And it's like he's back in his marriage, with his ex-wife at that moment. And that's very much brought home in the film. And it's a great scene, because it's like a horror movie scene, but it's also hilariously funny. And there are comedy elements in this film, although I wouldn't call it a horror comedy. I would just call it a horror movie that has a sense of humor, which is always welcome, to have a sense of humor in a horror movie. And it's got a really goofy ending too. I mean, it has a great ending, a great climactic ending, but then there's a goofy little coda that he puts on after the ending that is just sort of whimsical, that for whatever reason. But it doesn't hurt the ending at all, the main ending, I should say, the main event ending. But then, yeah, that's the witches of Zugamarudi, or whatever. Oh, and this movie, you can watch this on Netflix tonight, but you have to go and find it under the horrible, horrible, horrible English title. Are you ready? Because they should have given this an English title. The English title should have been The Village of the Witches. That would have been a perfectly respectable title. No, if you want to find this movie on Netflix, because you can watch it on Netflix, you have to look for the title Witchin' and Bitchin'. Yeah. Isn't that horrible? Witchin' and Bitchin'. Why? Why? Why would you do that to a perfectly good, in fact, excellent horror movie? You call it Witchin' and Bitchin'. Witchin' and Bitchin'. Really? That's terrible. That's just awful. But yeah, so it's on Netflix, and that's its English title, and you can find it under that. It's totally worth seeing. You should watch it. The movie he made after that is called Messy. It's a documentary about a guy who's, I believe, was named Lionel Messi. I don't know who that is, and I don't know anything about the documentary. Then after that, he made a fictional movie, another feature, called Words with Gods. I never heard anything about this one, know nothing about it, but it sounds good. And after that was Migran Noche, the Noc, I don't know how to pronounce Spanish. It's The Big Night. After that is The Big Night. And I'm supposed to have already gotten a copy of this, and I keep not getting it. But yeah, look forward to seeing that. I've heard a lot of good things about The Big Night. It's about a New Year's Eve telecast from the nightclub, I guess. But I haven't seen it. Heard a lot of good things about it. And then the new one is The Bar, which I review in a separate video, and it's an awesome 4-star, 2 thumbs up movie. So yeah, that's Alex de la Iglesia. Hold that up one more time. Alex de la Iglesia. And he's great, so check out some more of his movies. Especially check out the Perfect Crime or the Last Circus would be the top 2 recommendations on the list. And until then, see you next time.